Hey everyone, happy Sunday to you. Ooh, got a blue tongue, blue drink. That's kind of weird. Didn't see that coming. Anyways, I want to talk to you a little bit about before we get going about this week's work about these weekly videos I post. Sometimes they're full of really good information. Sometimes they're just a recap of last week and a look forward to this coming up week. But I know some of you aren't watching them, and I know this because I put very simple free points, bonus phrases or questions in there, and only two of you or three of you answer them, which is okay. It's no problem for me, but everybody needs the points. So you need to watch these videos, and of course, if you're not watching them, you're not going to see this one, so I'm not going to continue on with that. But that said, good job overall on your AA and NA papers and Al-Anon and whatnot. Look, it's our responsibility as LCDCs or as therapists, as LPCs, MFWs, LCSWs, whatever we are, right? It's our responsibility ethically to know what's available for our clients, right? It doesn't matter if AA works for us or doesn't work for us or our family, or if we don't like it or didn't like the process. That's okay. It's not about us. It's about your client and what they're willing to do. But you need to know enough about them to have these conversations. I would encourage you all to follow through with some of the history of these programs and some of the, comparisons of the programs. If you went to an AA meeting, I'm going to encourage you outside on your own time to go to an NA meeting. Look, I know that's asking a lot. We're all very busy. I get that. But again, you're going to be asking your clients to do things when they're very busy, right? So it's our job ethically. It's our ethical responsibility to know what's out there and how they work. At least have an idea. We don't have to be experts on these programs, right? We just have to know about them and kind of at least have the basic working knowledge of how they operate, what their philosophies are, how they're helpful. So speaking of that, what I want to hear on these smart recovery papers that are coming up in 3 weeks is more about how you think it's helpful, right? I don't want you to give me a rundown of, Johnny said this in the meeting or Sally said this in the meeting, right? If you want to mention that, that's fine, but I don't need paragraphs on that. I want to know about your experience. Were you scared finding a meeting? Were you nervous? Were you anxious? How do you think the process is helpful? Where do you think the process could be improved? Do you think it's helpful for your future clients? Do you see any pitfalls or downsides to a program like these, right? So don't compare the two programs when you do your next one. Just simply write about your experience. Overall, you guys did a great job. Overall, this class is really getting the hang of this APA for the most part. So I've met with 3 of you via Zoom already, and I'm happy to meet with the rest of you via Zoom. All you have to do is reach out to me. Because remember, guys, if you don't reach out to me, I have to assume you know what you're doing. But I want to touch on this because a couple of you haven't answered emails I've sent for multiple emails. And as we discussed from the very first day of class, from the very first syllabus video to in the syllabus, you must check your emails regularly. Because that's on you, not me. If I send you something about a grade and you don't send it, I can't do anything with that. But then you're going to expect me to come back and fix it later, and that's not how that works, right? It's part of being a professional. So it's part of again, counselors in training, right? It's part of being having an ethical responsibility to do these things. We've established that you have to check that. So either do or don't, but don't expect me to change grades and things if you don't respond to me after several emails. If there's a problem, please communicate with me. That's all it takes. Just communicate with me. So that said, 12-step philosophy. It's the medical model, the disease concept. You have a disease. You come here, you can't drink for the rest of your life, basically, right? Or use drugs or whatever. You have this allergy to it. You have this disease that created this allergy that says you lose power of choice and control when you drink or use drugs. Believe in a higher power, do some step work with others. That's how this program works. Smart recovery is completely opposite of that. Smart recovery says we don't think it's a disease, we think it's a choice. We don't care if you have a higher power or not. Use it if you have it by all means, but if you don't, it's not a deal breaker here. We believe that, and I say we, Smart Recovery believes that by using cognitive behavioral therapy, You can identify rational and irrational thoughts, replace the irrational thoughts with rational thinking, and make changes that way. What's unique about Smart Recovery is they let all addictions in. It's not just like where AA has what they call a singleness of purpose, meaning it's people with drinking issues. Sorry, I went blank there for a minute. Narcotics Anonymous is about drug use, right? Smart doesn't care. Smart says drinking, drugs, codependency, love addiction, sex addiction, food addiction, it doesn't matter. And where I think that's very valuable is, even in the AA literature, it says drinking is just a symptom of what's going on, right? And I believe that there's most generally an underlying issue. So while the lifestyles may be very, very different from someone who overeats versus someone, or someone with codependency versus someone who drinks, or let's just say someone who drinks versus someone who uses cocaine every day, the lifestyles are very different. However, what's driving that behavior behind them is very, very much the same in most cases, or very similar, right? And so that's how I think that's a unique perspective. Me personally, I believe it's a disease of choice. I think both are right. I think if I come to a T in the road and to the right is drinking or drugs, to the left is not, is that a disease or a choice that makes me turn? Now, we can debate all day long the variables, the many variables that go into me making that decision. But I also have a decision to turn left and go to a meeting of any kind. Whether I like it or don't is irrelevant. If it saves my life. Look, I've been to many AA and NA meetings that I couldn't stand. I'd have rather been a billion other places, but I made the choice to help save my own life, right? So is that a choice or a disease? However, I believe that when you do make that choice to drink or use drugs, I 100% believe in the medical model and the disease concept, that it hijacks my brain, takes full control, and I lose power of choice at that point. I fully believe that, and that is one of the reasons I'm a proponent of treatment, inpatient treatment in particular, because it gives me that structured environment away from the substance. Right? Because I do lose that power of choice. So just some thoughts on that. I know I'm getting a little ahead of the game. That's not for another 3 weeks. So good job on your DBs, replying to your peers, and little writing things, not a big deal. You guys just keep grinding, keep doing a good job. You're doing okay. That said, this week is on co-occurring disorders on chapter 25. This is a very important topic. I mean, they're all important. I can say that for everyone, right? But this one really... It's very rare you come across what we call the old straight up alcoholic, right? Or the straight up, you'll see straight up marijuana user, straight up cocaine user. There's almost always, that's kind of weird, but there's almost certainly a co-occurring disorder. Now, whether it rises to the level of a disorder, but there's something else going on, an anxiety disorder, bipolar disorder, depression disorder. Like it could be a number of things. It's not with everybody, so don't be so quick as well to point the finger and put them in a box and say, oh, you have anxiety, so you have an anxiety disorder. Look, I have anxiety. I don't have an anxiety disorder, right? I get anxiety. I don't have a disorder. I sometimes in my life have been depressed. I don't have a major depressive disorder, right? I have mood swings sometimes. I'm human, right? Some days are better than others. Doesn't mean I have a bipolar disorder. So we can have symptoms of a disorder without having a disorder. So you really want to get familiar with your DSM, and this is where you'll start to learn the criterion for these disorders, right? And there's specifiers, there's timelines, there's events, there's effects it has, right? That before we go labeling disorders, but it's very important we're at least familiar, because as LCDCs, you're not really diagnosing, you can't. That said, you still need to know about it, and you need to know what's going on so that when you do talk to other professionals, you're able to communicate that. But more importantly, you're able to help your client, right? So it's important to know something else is going on. Very important. And then you have a quiz on that. So super light week. Then the following week is on treatment settings. I love this. I worked in a treatment setting for 9 years. And as I mentioned a minute ago, I'm a proponent of treatment. And then you have your DB on that. I'll certainly do another video on that because I love the treatment setting. I did a lot of things in a treatment setting. I worked First couple years of my career, I worked in a detox unit. I was the weekend counselor, the whole thing. I did that for about 3 years, and then ran an IOP for the place I worked for. I stayed at one place, and then I marketed for them the last 2 years. So you don't know where your career is going to take you, right? And then the marketing gig was a great gig. It was the springboard for a private practice. So you just don't know where that's going to lead you, right? But I loved my time at the treatment center overall. I mean, there's things I certainly don't miss about it. It's very busy work. It's very strenuous work. There's timelines, deadlines, management, some good, some not good, right? Your work colleagues, same thing. There's behavior issues in the treatment industry I don't get in private practice necessarily. But it was a wonderful, wonderful experience over those years. I credit that to my whole career, honestly. So I love the treatment setting. Followed by that, you have your smart recovery paper. Remember, on the smart recovery, you're going to have to create some little account. It's very minimal, but people always seem to get frustrated and panicked every semester. So I'm going to tell you to start working on that now. I'll tell you this also, I did it in 7 minutes, start to finish. So I know it can be done. If you have problems, contact them, not me. I can't help you with that. That's their process. But just do that, get that done, and then it's spring break, and then you'll come back. So you really have, once your paper's done, you got a week of spring break, and then followed by a week where it's only a summary of your paper. So you got a pretty easy couple weeks coming up after you get through these, and we'll be at the halfway point. So guys, this semester is cruising. You guys are doing really well overall. Be sure to check your emails regularly. Emails, and of course your announcements page where you'll find this video. If there's a topic you ever want to discuss or want me to discuss in a short video, or you want to discuss it with me, either way, I'm happy to do it. Just send me an email and say, hey, could you talk about this? I'll be happy to post a video on it, whatever it is. That said, let's make the up to 5-point bonus word today, email. Send me the email with the word email. And yeah, that'll be it. You guys have a great week. We'll talk soon.